Issue 153. The children tell Sonic that they think it's an honor to get a genie spirit, and one of the genie ghosts says that after the transformation ritual they'll return home, and in times of danger they'll become summoners like in Final Fantasy and be able to summon a genie at will. Well, that's pretty cool actually. And this is explained as the reason why the kingdom of Shadazar is being kept strong. A genie says that the only way they can leave the mountain is to do this and become slaves to the children they possess. So they don't entirely benefit from it. That was foreshadowed by us seeing a genie called the one who summoned him Master earlier on. So Sonic shouldn't be surprised by this. Sonic asks what happens when the kid dies, and he's told that at that point the genie becomes truly free, so he spends his entire life wishing death on his master. And the summoner has to live with a slave who wants him dead. Then the kids explain that during the 5 years that they're summoners, they're treated like royalty. And now reminded of one of the old men who is only old because of the damage his summoning did to his body, and now it goes from cool to horrible again. Not necessarily writing-wise horrible, but oh my god, this is horrible! Horrible. There always has to be a catch. I bet the genies are making the summoners age faster on purpose. Since Sonic naturally doesn't approve of the kids dying in just 5 years, he destroys the globe to prevent the ritual from being completed, and the genie ghosts decide to try and destroy the kids because they're useless to them now, which seems pretty unnecessary. After Eggman doesn't come with them, not seeing a point, Sonic and the kids get sent to the Dimension of Lost Souls, and Sonic realizes that all of the scary Lost Soul stuff was just an illusion, and that's the only power the ghost genies have in their spirit form. This is why he tells everyone to close their eyes, hold hands, and walk together in a horizontal line. One of the ghosts complains that Sonic had somehow guessed their secret because the plot demanded it, just from him not being subjected to scary images right away. Eggman complains to the genie about Sonic winning a lot, implying that he's working with them, and has been for some time. He tries to make a deal with them to get them kids so they could help him. That would be interesting, genies being Eggman's army, but the genies refuse to help him purely because they're racist, and Eggman says it's their loss. The kids are naturally not that happy after being saved by Sonic because they wanted to become summoners, and one of them says he's disgraced them and their families. Why? It's not anyone's fault but Sonic that this happened. After Sonic lampshades their stupidity, one of the kids says it was their decision, and none of them were forced into the ritual. Sonic then feels the need to apologize for saving their lives, and Eggman taunts him for it. This is reminding me of when he was in the Special Zone and some of the civilians weren't exactly grateful for him being a hero. I wonder if he'll remember this in the future. In the next story, Techno appears out of nowhere to fly and save Amy when there was no indication of her following her before, so I assumed she had stayed behind with the Explorer. If she was following her, why didn't she tell her? Because meta logic, because they want you to be surprised. I hate meta logic, that doesn't make any sense. The Explorer asks eagerly if she found the gem while standing when he has a twisted ankle, and Amy is annoyed with him for not asking if she was okay first. I was already suspicious of the Explorer a little for not seeming to care about her, but his next panel where he greedily asks her for the gem saying he needs it proves that he's evil because it's a clumsy foreshadowing giving it away. Good thing I'm not the only one suspicious since Amy and Techno are too. Stupidly, the Explorer, who I was supposed to believe was a girl the whole time apparently, stupidly decides to tell them that everything she said was a lie and the girls helped her steal the gem from where it belongs. That explains why we didn't get to see the villain who would have imprisoned the gem here. You know, where the girls were suspicious, maybe the Explorer would have gotten away with it if she could have kept her mouth shut for one measly second instead of telling them both to beat her up. She knocks them to the floor with the power of the gem and brags that she can use it to conquer the world, and Amy lampshades the corny dialogue of the villain. You know, this has been happening a lot lately, and if the writers noticed how corny and unbelievable the villain dialogue was, they shouldn't have written it that way in the first place. She uses the gem to turn the floor below Amy into quicksand, but fortunately Techno wasn't standing on it at the time, so she can fly Amy out of it. They run away from some fire, and the Explorer gets threatened by Serpentis, the guardian of the gem, who go figure was still alive instead of being killed that easily by a single arrow. The Explorer uses the gem with no clearly defined powers to transform these Serpentis to mist, letting the heroes figure out that it has transforming powers. This gives Amy an idea of how to beat her. She tells her that she could change the castle into solid silver to get rich. Why didn't she say gold? While the Explorer thanks them for the suggestion, she still tries to kill them with the gem's laser, probably because she knows they still want to stop her. The laser reflects back into her and conveniently turns her into mist instead of destroying her, wrapping up the story arc in just 2 issues, which is good. She still might as well have killed her. If Amy doesn't feel guilty about doing this, then why didn't she just shoot every other villain, like Eggman? And conveniently, the Ultra Gem was transformed into mist too, although never mind, that does make sense because it was being held in the hand of someone who's transformed into mist. But why was she transformed into mist and not silver? I guess she was planning to turn Amy and Techno into mist, but she should have tried to turn them into silver to make money off them. Then we could have had her death be ironic because she gets turned into the very thing she wanted to make money off of. In the next story, which is sadly not a Tails story, Espio and Mighty start fighting, with Mighty saying that he's had it coming for a long time. He probably did a lot of things to annoy him off screen, and they have been rivals for the entire comic up to this point. So I guess the comic has been building up to this. The villains recap their plan to the audience again, wasting comic space with their stilted Captain Obvious dialogue, and at one point it looks like Espio's mere head was thrown by Mighty, but it was just the art being weird, as he's thrown into a bullseye perfectly fine. When Espio's trying to hold the bullseye up from below him, he gets hit by the Brain Scrambler and enraged, causing him to destroy it, saying that Mighty will pay for making a fool out of him. I'd expect a device called the Brain Scrambler to have much more devastating, permanent, and depressing effects than this. Since Charmy just happened to be near Espio at the time trying to help him with the bullseye lifting, Espio lashes out at him. Makes sense, lots of built-up resentment there. Mighty saves him and says that only he should be the one to kill Charmy. Espio threatens Mighty in the same way for that, and Charmy flies off in a panic, saying that he's not sure what to do because he's never had to think for himself before. Except for the time when he was locked out of his home and had to get worker bees to free his friends from elemental spirits, that time was pretty significant for him. I remember him having a bad memory, but this is ridiculous. Some soldiers show up out of nowhere and knock out Mighty and Espio with stun gas and arrest them, with one of them saying that most people were already assuming that the Chaotix would turn bad. I don't blame them, considering that aside from beating up superpowered villains for stress relief, which evil people could do too just fine, the Chaotix don't act nice and heroic at all and just seem to hate each other. Why wouldn't people hate them? At least Sonic is entertaining. The first and last stories were Nigel Kitching, and in the first one, Sonic saves the children from making themselves genie summoners because of the fact that they reduce their lifespan of 5 years after that in the process. And they do nothing but complain because apparently Sonic saving them disgraced them and their families, when they could have been treated like royalty. Not worth living for just 5 years though, but Sonic apologizes anyways. It makes sense that the genie ghosts do this because they want to be free as soon as possible, and I guess that's the absolute best they can do with accelerating their summoner's aging rate. They can't just kill them with their magic right away, because that makes sense. Even though their masters should just be able to command them to let them age normally. Also, the genies refuse to make an evil deal with Eggman, purely because he's a human. So much for him having a unique enemy force on his side. The second story was by Lou Stringer, and reveals out of nowhere that first off, Techno was following Amy closely enough to fly and save her from a lava pit while she didn't know she was that close to her. But second, it turns out the Explorer was a female villain who wants to take over the world with a shape-shifting gem, which is a good twist. This causes Amy to trick her into making a castle full of reflective surfaces out of greed, and she dodges a laser that reflects back at her, turning the evil Xenor into mist. With a name like Xenor, why wouldn't I have assumed that it was a guy? Especially since explorers in these contexts are usually dudes, and no big deal was made of her gender. So that was interesting and clever of a plot. I just wish the beginning didn't happen, because that lava pit never should have existed at all if it was just there for a cliffhanger. And the final story has Espio be brainwashed to try to kill Mighty and Charmy, and he and Mighty get knocked out by soldiers' stun gas and arrested, with the soldiers assuming they turned evil instead of assuming one of the many magical villains in the world brainwashed them. Though it makes sense that most people would assume they turn evil so easily since they're jerks who all hate each other anyways, but the Chaotix could be much, much worse than simply trying to fight each other. Like Other M, for example.